Welcome to Sips with Scrubs, a nurse podcast where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Today we are joined with Fallon, and I'm so excited to have her here. So before she introduces herself, I just want to tell you thank you for being a part of this. Thanks for coming. I know we're going to have some good conversation today, so I'm excited about it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure getting to know you more over social, and then now having this opportunity to have this conversation.
So just let us know like how long you've been a nurse and like what specialties you've worked and what your current specialty you're doing.
Yeah. So I've been a nurse going on 10 years in October. I can't believe it.
It sounds so long.
It's long, but it's not.
It flies by, right?
It went by in the blink of an eye, and I'm like, wait, I'm still new, y'all. I just started.
No. You're like way experienced now. 10 years, you can hit a decade.
Yeah. So I'm still processing that. And I started off as an LVN, just getting into nursing, no idea what I was doing. So I was like, a 1 year nursing, cool, I can manage this. I started working at like rehabs and long-term care facilities with Alzheimer's patients. And I would be the charge nurse over like 30 patients at night in night shift. And it was crazy. I can't believe I did that. And I worked in the confused patients that are like behind the closed doors that have like security and everything because
you were in the thick of it. And on night, and that's when they like to have fun is on night shift.
Girl, I had the Xanax, all the meds ready, like all the Ativan.
Who wants some?
Yeah, I'm ready. I did that for a little bit, went back to get my RN BSN, and that was like only God. Like I never thought I'd go back to school because I was happy as an LVN. I was like, I'm making money. I got $20 an hour. That's not even like what I used to get paid. And so, but people around me kept motivating me, like the NPs, the doctors that I work with, they're like, you should go back. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do that. And I went back to school, got my BSN, and started working in critical care. I didn't go all the way to ICU. I started in IMU, the step down unit, and it was still a lot. It was like a medical IMU, 24 beds. And it was where I learned everything. I learned how to, do IVs on like so sick patients with no veins, like in an emergency room, like an emergency situation, you just gotta like get it in.
Yeah, I was special. I actually really like it because some people will be like, oh, why don't you want to do ICU? And I'm like, they're already sick when they're there. I think IMU is like so cool because it's like either we're going to downgrade them or we're going to upgrade them. It's like, which one is it going to be? Like, you don't know what the shift is going to look like.
It's fast-paced.
So many different things. And then sometimes in certain situations, we are taking care of ICU level patients until they can get a room up there. So it's just very interesting. And it definitely makes for an interesting work day and learning how to handle all types of like acuity levels.
Yes, you learn so much and you have to advocate, you have to speak up. And a lot of times I was scared, I was nervous. I was like, I'm new. I started off on nights and then I went to days and I got a little bit more confidence. I got certification as a CCRN, and then I started charging. Then I was a preceptor. I was doing all of these things, but I still wasn't getting like the money. I was like, what's up? Like, I've been here for how long?
You're like, I've done a lot. I've done everything.
And I got some shade back. Like, oh, this is what you do as a nurse. This is how you grow. You orient people. You're a preceptor. You don't get a raise for that. And I was just like, what?
Yeah, it's so interesting how everything shakes out because you do think like, oh no, like you have to be getting paid extra for that. And it's like, not necessarily. But we're gonna get into a lot of this stuff. You talked about a lot and you have a wealth of knowledge. So that's why I was like, I already know this is gonna be good. Today, I told you I didn't have my tea today, but I am sipping on my water throughout this
episode. I got some tea.
You have water or you have your tea?
Yeah.
So, and then if you guys see me snacking, I got some pineapples here because I already know I get hungry. So, whatever y'all drinking on, sip with us throughout this episode because this is going to be a good one. You mentioned advocating for yourself. So I want you to tell me about a time you had to advocate for yourself or your patient.
Yeah, this goes to like recently. So after I got out of the IMU, I did float nursing like you did. And, that's how we kind of connected. I was like, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. And so in the pandemic, I found a home. I got kind of tired of it. I found a home in the medical center here, and I was doing COVID research. COVID, of course, is up and down. So eventually I had to find a more stable position. So they hired me on as and I've never done this before in my life, being a transplant coordinator. So this is completely different from what I'm used to. I'm a critical care nurse. I'm a float nurse. I get in where I fit in. I make things happen. I move around, and that's it. But getting into a coordinator role was different. I have to connect with my patients in a different way.
Right.
And they really wanted to get me out on my own, like within 3 months. And I was like, I'm sorry, no. This is completely different. This is something that I don't know what I'm doing. And then I was also still doing some of the COVID research. So I was like, I'm going to need a little bit more time.
Right.
And my boss really pushed back on that. Why? Why do you feel like that? You're a critical care nurse. You should be able to get in where you fit in. Like, you're not a new nurse anymore, Fallon. And so I had to sit with that. And, like kind of think on it, like, is what she's saying is valid? Am I really standing up for myself? Like, and I came back and she asked me the same question. I was like, well, I can do this. If you give me, an extra 2 weeks, I can work on it, but I'm not going to be able to just jump back into it. It was still a little pushback, but I stood my ground. And my boss now, she respects me on a different level. Like, it's not even... Yeah, it's not even like insubordination or
right. You just expressing how you feel. And I think that's essential, because I think a lot of being a nurse is being self-aware, and you have to know yourself personally to know what you're comfortable with. And it's kind of funny because I feel like being a nurse has helped me become like a better adult. Yes. Because a lot of it translates over, like, you learn how to set boundaries with being a nurse. Like I said, you have to be self-aware, because then you have to know what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, and like what you will stand for. And, and then sometimes like everything is not a fight. Like sometimes it's just like, okay, so you being able to reassess that and be like, okay, let me think about this. Am I like, because some things are like different types of being uncomfortable. Because some of it is just like, okay, it's new, I'm uncomfortable, or it's just like, okay, I don't feel prepared enough, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like that's like a lot with nursing. And I really like that you shared that, because I feel like a lot of times people may experience that, but they don't have the words to like either communicate that, or they might not feel comfortable even expressing themselves that way, or they may feel like they don't want to seem like they're stupid or anything, And it's like, it's really just not even about that. It's just like, you have to be comfortable where you are, like within yourself, to be able to do your job. So I definitely have went through that before, where I'm just like, I'm not doing that.
And how do I express that in a way where it's not like, oh, you just don't want to learn. You just don't want to do it.
Right. That's what's so interesting about it too. Because it's like, okay, I know how I feel now. How do I say that correctly? Like professionally, especially. So it's like, I am willing to do these things, but I feel like I could be better prepared in these areas. So
yes, it's all about vocabulary. Now, there are times where you're going to have to like, no, like.
Yeah, just no. And then that's it. Because I just feel like a lot of times with nursing, they try to push the envelope, and like they will do what you allow them to do. I feel like sometimes they're like, oh, she can handle it. And it's like, yeah, I can, but should I have to?
Exactly. Like, work doesn't have to be backbreaking labor every time. Like, just because I know I work hard doesn't mean like you have to work me hard every time. Like,
that's true. And honestly, that statement right there kind of leads us into our topic for this episode, which is going to be a lot about burnout. So the advocating for yourself will help you prevent from going into burnout. And then what you were just mentioning too. So how do you, I guess we could just start from the beginning. Like, what are your experiences personally with burnout?
Yeah, so burnout, I heard about it probably in my textbook when I was going back to school. They had a little section, burnout, you might experience. Nothing too big, nothing too major. But it wasn't until I got into the nitty gritty and I was like knee deep into everything. Like, I was charging, I was preceptor, orienting new employees and students, and I was part of a committee. But then it came to a point where I was like, what am I really doing? Am I just going with the flow? Or am I like, I'm being flexible, I'm saying yes, or am I really like, making, maybe like making like myself a priority, but not in like a selfish way. Like it was very hard for me to decipher where I was. And so for me, burnout happened probably like my fourth year in IMU, fourth or fifth year before COVID happened in 2018. 2018, 2019, I started feeling it and I couldn't identify it. It was just like feeling like taking those bad feelings, like whatever you saw somebody like die or like something you have to do. Like I hated doing those procedures on patients, putting the BiPAP on or putting the NG tubes down. And I'm like, this is end of life. Like, and not having the words or the vocabulary, and then also having my coworkers struggling too, and my charge nurse not being able to understand, just telling me like, I need to move on. Like I can't really stay there. And I mean, I get like, that
how now. You do that. Yeah.
Exactly.
What does that look like? Yeah. What does that look like? I feel like people make it seem so easy. Like they say those words like, okay, you just have to get over it. But it's like, but how do I get over it? And what does that look like? Especially with us being nurses, I feel like you should be able to relate. Like, okay, this is how I did it. Or, these are things we're going to have to deal with being nurses. So we have to have the tools to get over the hump, through the hump really, because you still need to be able to process what's going on. Because I know for myself personally, I feel like a lot of times I don't process stuff until after the fact. So I'll just keep going, and I don't feel like anything is wrong until something's wrong. And then I'm like, oh, why do
one little thing? And it's like, oh.
Yeah, and it's just like, wait, what happened? Wait, when did I start not feeling okay? It's just like you just keep going, and you stop, and then it's just like, wait, I don't feel like 100% myself. So I know I was sharing with you before, but for me with burnout, I was telling you that mine happened more so during the pandemic, and it was just like the constant changes, like the beginning of the pandemic. Because for those who are listening who don't know, my unit was transitioned into the COVID unit. So I got it from the beginning and I was working with those patients. So it was just a lot of factors. And of course, none of this could have been predicted. I feel like beforehand with nursing, I handled a lot of the difficult things like better than most as far as like death and like stuff like that. Cause I just feel like I guess kind of have an understanding of like the life death process and I have a respect for death. So it's just kind of like, okay. And then with working with older adults, it's kind of like I see like, they've lived their life sort of thing, which is part of the reason why I didn't want to do peds, because I was like, I don't think I can handle that. But during the pandemic with like the fear of the unknown, we didn't know what was going on. Every shift, things were changing. And then, you're feeling pressure, then you're coming home. And I'm married. So then I'm like, what if I give this to him or, stuff like that. Luckily, I don't have any kids. So I didn't have that additional stress. And then, you see your coworkers going through it too. And it's just like a hope. It's a lot going on. Then your patients are scared. Everybody's scared. It's just panic everywhere. So eventually that took a toll on me. But luckily, I was kind of how you were with your advocating for yourself. I was able to understand like, okay, I don't think I'm in a good place right now. So I was able to talk to my manager and I asked her, I don't think I can be on this unit right now. I need a break. And luckily, this is why good management is like essential, because she gave me the option. She was like, do you want to take PTO right now? And then, nursing is short, period. It's been short for a while. So for her to be able to offer that, like, at that moment was really neat. But I was like, no, I think I can work. I just think that I need a break from that patient population. So I was able to get that. So it's just so interesting going through it because, like you say, you don't have the vocabulary. And then sometimes you don't know that you're in it until you're in it. And then you're kind of like, how do I get out of this?
I love that you said also, like, you spoke up.
Yeah.
Many of us, like, we hold back. We don't know how it's going to come out, how the other person's going to interpret it. We just automatically assume, oh, they're going to tell me no. They're going to tell me,
Yes.
to move on. You need to stop. You need to, what's wrong? They may belittle you. And the truth is, like, we don't know how the management might, react to our request. We
That's true.
really don't know until we ask. And if you get rejected, okay, that lets you know, like, okay, well, maybe this isn't the place for me. Maybe I need to go somewhere else that's truly going to respect me and my requests as, a nurse, individual, somebody that adds to the table,
Exactly. That's essential. And that's really true, because I had a lot of coworkers and they were like, they let you do that. Like, they didn't understand what happened, because it's not like I was like, hey guys, I'm going to go talk to the manager. I'm like a very vocal person, so I don't necessarily struggle with speaking. I kind of struggle more with like expressing myself emotionally. So I struggled in that aspect where I don't like to, I'm the person like, oh, am I gonna like look like a wimp or something for a minute? I'm more so that person. I'm not the person that's like afraid to say something. But like in this topic, I was just like, is that what I really need? And I was just like, you know what? I don't feel okay right now. And I don't know. I don't know how you get to that point where you gotta do something for yourself, and you gotta think about it. It's your life and you're the one living it. So I had to say something. But to your point, a lot of my coworkers were like, how did they let you do that? You just went there and you just talked to them? And I'm like, yes, I just told her how I was feeling, and that's what she did. And they were just like, wow, they'd never thought of that to themselves. And that's just kind of crazy that that's a thing in nursing. A lot of nurses do not speak up for themselves.
Yeah. I'm that type of person. Like, that's how I was. And it goes back to me just in my childhood, not feeling like I was enough, like I was worthy. And so that's kind of what my motivation was to get into nursing, to kind of prove myself, like I was smart enough, I was good enough, I was going to make my parents proud. And that kind of set me up for burnout, because then I went into this, new environment. And like we said, like they're going to just keep pushing the envelope. They're going to just keep asking you to show up. They're just going to be asking you to take on more and to do more. And, she's a hard worker. So, we're going to ask her to do this and this and that. And that really set me up for burnout. I didn't have boundaries. I didn't have healthy boundaries. And it just went back to like my childhood and how I grew up. But it wasn't until I got burnt out that I was able to evaluate that and to see that, oh, okay, this is where it stems from.
Exactly.
Doing that work.
So that's what I was saying. Like, it's funny how nursing pulls a lot of things out of you. So, I mean, I like nursing for what it is, but it's also I don't even know the word for it, but it's like good for character development. Like,
yeah, it is. That's why I love it.
It teaches you a lot about yourself. It really does. And like I said, I feel like it helped me mature faster than I probably would have had I not been a nurse. Because I'm like, we encounter so many different situations where we do have to do those sorts of things. Whereas someone else, it might take them a little bit longer to get to that point, not in nursing. So I guess we could kind of talk about like, what do we do to get out of that state? Especially since like when we were in it, we're just like trying to figure out, well, for me personally, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to do something. So
yeah, no.
What do you do to help yourself?
So for me, I knew something needed to change. And I definitely got into, situations that didn't help me. Like, of course, with my career, but then also with things outside of work. Like I started coping in other ways with relationships, putting myself into relationships. I'm always a giver, like a nurse, you give, and a relationship you give. And so this guy that I was dating at that time, he was, helping me through some things, but I really brought a lot of my traumas and my baggage to him, and I shouldn't have. That's not really healthy. I should have been in therapy. But he recommended therapy. And as a nurse, I'm kind of like, well, I know. I'll go. Fine.
That's exactly how we are.
Well, I know that, but like, are you in therapy though? Like,
right, exactly.
Getting offensive and things like that. But after our breakup, I was really at this low point, but he had kind of like helped me get out of my comfort zone, start thinking more about my career. Like, okay, what are you doing now? Like, do you want to be a nurse practitioner? Do you want to go back to school? what is it that you want to do? And he asked me these really hard questions. And basically I was doing a self-assessment. Like, what am I passionate about? What do I love? What helps me feel good? What really empowers me? And a lot of that was teaching. So I kind of did some research on health and wellness, and I found a program as a health and wellness coach. And that's how I learned about wellness. That's how I learned about this holistic lifestyle living and doing and being. And that's kind of where I learned to better take care of myself. Really like practicing real self-care. Really and truly, how was I treating myself? And it's still a journey. I don't have it perfect.
Right.
It's different in every seasons. You know, some seasons you have a busy season, some seasons you're kind of on the slower end, you know, and just reevaluating and adjusting your self-care. For me, asking those hard questions of myself was so pivotal in my journey. Just getting quiet with myself, really asking myself what I want in life, what is my, you know, what drives me, what motivates me. Journaling helped with that, getting into therapy again, and creating healthier relationships. So not only healthy relationships with others, you know, my family, my friends, but like healthy relationships with food, healthy relationships with movement, you know, how I'm getting active every day, and the healthy relationship with myself. Like, how am I really treating myself? And so those were some of the things that helps me get out of burnouts. Now that doesn't mean to say that I will never experience burnout ever again.
Exactly.
I recognize those signs. Even as a business owner and a nurse still working full time, I see those signs and I'm like, okay, God, I'm getting burnt out.
You're like, hold on. So real quick, tell us, like, what are those signs for you that you recognize in yourself?
Okay, when I am like, when it's really hard for me to get up in the morning, because I'm normally a morning person. For me, it's like really hard to get up in the morning. I keep hitting the snooze button. I don't want to do my normally fun activities, my activities that I know are gonna, like, you know, my morning routine. I don't want to journal. I don't want to walk my dog. Like, I just really feel like just sitting there, and I'm like, what's going on? And I start getting, I'm a social butterfly. When I start getting really introverted, like, of course there's a balance, you know, like I definitely need people to connect, but I also need to protect my peace at the same time. But when I go off that edge and I'm like really like antisocial, I'm like, something's up. Like, what's going on?
Like, I'm not myself right now.
I don't want to talk to anybody. And it just, I'm like, okay, this is low energy, not feeling myself. Okay, I need to change something.
I really like what you said, like a lot of what you said, because I think it kind of speaks to some of the self-awareness that I mentioned before. So I feel like in order to tell like you're burnt out and how to get out of that, you have to know who you are first. So that quiet time that you mentioned is like really essential. And I think sometimes we live in such a busy world that we don't take time to like really like talk to ourselves, I guess you could say. Like, what does interest you? Like, you, not like what does your parents want you to do, or what does this person want you to do? What do you want to do? What do you want your life to look like? Like you said, what motivates you? And it's interesting you said that, because I literally just did that a couple of weeks ago. Like, again, like, because I've done it before, but I feel like sometimes you have to do it like, kind of like a check. Like, okay, am I like, is this thing that I'm doing, is it still working for me, or do I need to like do something else? Like, is this something that I still want to pursue, or do I want to dial back on that and focus on another area in my life? So I feel like, well, you will never get those answers if you don't ever have that quiet time that you mentioned. And then going forward with that, like you said, with you realizing like you're not yourself, and you know, like you're normally social butterfly and things like that. Like, you don't know who you are, I guess. I mean, if you don't ever have that quiet time, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like very, everything plays a part. So I guess like you really need to get to know yourself first, you know, as a person. But for me, as far as like burnout symptoms, I get irritable and like short tempered. And like more so, I guess you could say with my family members too, but at work, like I'm normally someone that's like, hey y'all, like what y'all doing today? Like, and I like to tease the patients sometimes, because I kind of like to make them like laugh and stuff. So I'll find something to mess with them about. I'm like, look at you with your little bonnet on, or like something like that. And so like when I'm like, I'm not wanting, like I just want to get in and out the room immediately, then I'm like, all right. Or like I'm real irritable or like kind of short tempered where something wouldn't normally like make me like annoyed so easily and I'm getting annoyed. That's how I kind of be like, okay, maybe you need a day off, or and sometimes that's all I need. Sometimes I just need a day off and then I'm like, okay, I'm rejuvenated. Or like sometimes I just need to rest and then I'm back to who I am as a person. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I experience when I'm like nearing like, okay, like watch out now.
What's going on?
Right. And then also what you mentioned too with discovering like what you like to do and stuff like that. I learned a lot about myself. I feel like during the pandemic, because I feel like we didn't have a lot of other outlets, and
Yeah.
some of the normal stuff that I would do, like go to church in person, like that normally, like I'm doing that every Sunday, like that's a thing. And then I'm being around family every Sunday. So like Sunday is like God and family time, and I'm like recharged and I'm ready to go tackle the world. And I didn't have that during the pandemic. So I kind of had to like reroute, like, okay, like what are you gonna do or whatever. So it's funny, a lot of the stuff that I like doing is stuff I used to like to do when I was a kid. So I had like, I guess, reconnected with my inner child. So
Yes.
so I like to dance. I've always liked dancing. I used to be on the dance team in high school. Well, I told you that before. So like dance workout classes, I like that. I started gardening. That's not something I used to do before, but I've always been interested in it. So I started trying a lot of different things. And that's what helped me do through the pandemic, just trying different things and not like breaking the monotony, I guess you could say. Sometimes you need a change of pace. So I related to like everything you said. I'm like, I feel that.
Yes, I love that gardening, girl. That's goals right there.
I like it. And then it gives you appreciation for life, I feel like, is what it is. Like seeing it start from nothing and then it's like a little plant and then you get the fruit. So it's just like, wow.
Yeah.
It sounds like, okay, of course that happens. But to actually like watch it like over time is just like a beautiful thing.
And you're a part of it and you're like nurturing it, you're watering,
Exactly.
talking to it. So it's like, yeah.
And it's like, I guess it's just a different learning experience because every plant is different. And I don't know. I don't know why I tie everything back to that, but it's kind of like people too, every person is different. So it's like, okay, so this plant likes to be watered this much, and this one likes more heat than that one. This one prosper in this environment. So it's just like interesting to learn all those sorts of things. And then to eat like the stuff that you grew, that's cool too.
That's what I want to do eventually. I'd like that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worthwhile. I'll say it's definitely a lot of trial and error. But another point you made too that I really liked is like every day is not like it's not going to be a perfect day. Every season is not going to be the same. So it's just kind of like sometimes you just have to change what you're doing. It's not going to be the same stuff that works all the time. So you just have to know that and then pivot.
Yeah, exactly. Like the little plants, this season they need more water. This season they need more light, and knowing that for ourselves is so important. Like I think I was saying this earlier, some seasons you need to do less, maybe some seasons.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
More. Yeah. And it's just knowing, I think for me, being okay with that, like knowing, okay, I need to slow down. You doing a lot, Fallon. Like that's how I have to talk to myself sometimes. That's part of my self-care, like knowing and being okay and being really kind to myself, being really, really gentle, because I've noticed I'm super hard on myself. And then so like I start this little shame cycle. Like I feel like I get really hard on myself. Then I notice that I'm getting hard on myself. And so I feel bad for being hard on myself. And it's just like this little cycle and I'm going back and forth and I'm just feeling like crap and I'm in a pity party. And then I'm like, wait a second, break, no, time out.
Right.
What are you doing? And really to shift out of that has been being in gratitude, like just, okay, what can I appreciate in this moment about it? And so, yeah, something that I'm dealing with.
I'm the same way with that because I think well not I think I have high expectations for myself because I know I could do a lot of things. So it's just like you said with being okay with the season of okay, I'm just not going to do as much, or like you don't feel up to doing as much as you know you can do. That's when I'm like,
Mhm.
well, you be doing all this, and now I'm like, I barely want to go to work, and it's like, why? Like I used to work overtime all this time, and you don't even want to do regular shift. Like it's just like what? But it really is like I guess like a waxing and waning. Like sometimes it's like okay, yeah, like let's go. And while I had the energy, I'm kind of like okay, well, while I want to do this, let's do everything then. And then for
Yeah.
those days where I don't want to feel like doing anything, I don't have to do anything. It's like okay, you don't want to do this and that. That's fine. Let's just sit on the couch and watch TV. That's cool too.
Exactly. I love those days too. It's a healthy balance. It really.
Uh-huh. I had to learn, like you said, to be okay with that because I'd be like, dang, you didn't do anything productive today. But I had to reprogram my thinking and say to myself, it is productive to rest because how can you go forward if you don't ever take a break?
Yeah, and like sometimes on those days you don't do the activities that require like full on energy, like that
Mm-hmm.
brain energy and or that physical energy. Maybe you just, I don't know, write an email, pop some clothes in the dryer, put your dishes in the
Exactly.
dishwasher, and then boom. That's how I check it off. I'm like, oh, okay, I did something.
You
I'm
did do
good.
something right. What I do too is like, well, this will be on my off days because when I go to work, I'm not doing anything when I get home.
Yeah, yeah,
But on
those
my
12
off
hour
days,
shifts.
yeah, on my off days, sometimes where I'm not feeling up to par to do a lot of stuff, I'll just be like, okay, like every hour or every 2 hours, I'm gonna do like one thing. So like you said, like with
Mhm.
laundry or something, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get up and I'll put it in the washer, and it's like, okay, I did something, and then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna take it out. Okay, now
Yeah,
I'm gonna load the dishwasher. So it's like little stuff, but it's not like I'm doing stuff like all at one time. It's just like I do one thing, and then I go sit down and watch an episode. Then the episode is over. Okay, I'm gonna go do another thing, and it kind of breaking it up like that sometimes helps me out too. And then I end up being productive, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even feel like I did that. Okay.
that's good. That's good. Like, I think also taking the pressure off. That sounds
Yeah,
like
that's essential.
taking the pressure off. Hold up, friend. Like you gotta take the laundry out. I gotta journal. I gotta wake up. I gotta work out. I gotta drink water. Like once
Mhm.
we start putting that pressure on ourselves, it's just like it makes it even worse. Like it just causes more anxiety
Yeah,
and like thinking about your to-do list and you're just like mind racing and you have so many things to do. Like instead of like letting it flow, walking at
exactly.
ease, like okay, listening to your body. I mean, yes, some days you're gonna need that pep talk and be like, come on, sis, you
Like
gotta get
you
with
got to
it.
get it done. But sometimes you do, and normally another thing I started doing too is like every week I'll have like a day where I'm like, okay, I'm not really doing much of anything today, and I'm
Yeah.
planning that. So that's has helped me out a lot too. Okay, so we kind of brushed on self care some. So I wanted to get into how we balance self care versus self indulgence, and what does that look like for us?
Yeah, that's really good. I think we talked about that last time or the other time we were talking. And
Hmm.
for me, it kind of lets me like I kind of think about like with my nutrition or with my mental health, especially those two, like how to balance it out. So when it comes to nutrition, sometimes, you want those, not everything is going to be what is healthy is not always going to seem like it's delicious, right? And so
Hmm.
sometimes you can get into this trap of like, oh, eating healthy is not, it's not going to taste good.
Yeah.
So, drinking water, like I rather just grab a soda or get coffee or something like that. But yes, sometimes not, you have to change your palate. And
Hmm.
sometimes you need food or you need water or you need rest or whatever it is more than you need what you feel like you need in that moment. So it's kind of like knowing what you really need and not what you just need in that moment. I think that's what
Yeah.
kind of helps me figure out which is which, if that makes sense. But like really understanding, and it comes with getting quiet, like getting really getting to know yourself more, like okay, do I really need to go get that, cheeseburger or whatever it is. Like, not to shame anybody that likes cheeseburgers, but like, do I really need that every day? Like, do I really
Yeah,
need that every day, or do I really need, like, some greens in my life? Like, how do you balance that out? And I think it's just thinking about, you in that moment. Like, are you stress eating? Or,
yeah.
is your body trying to tell you something like, hey, you need salts, you need minerals, you need nutrients. So that's why I'm craving these comfort foods, like the things that make you feel comforted, or those
Right.
comfort foods, because when they hit the gut, they send like these signals up to your brain to tell you like, oh, this is good. This is, releasing those serotonin and all those happy chemicals. That's kind of like how it works sometimes with our gut health. So just really knowing like, okay, these foods were created to get me in, to get me really stuck on it. So how can I break that cycle and really evaluate what it is that my body really needs? Am I actually like really thirsty? Do I need to drink some water? Like, what do I need? My self-care, what is it that I actually need? And just knowing, and that comes with time. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. Like,
Right.
for me, like, I used to indulge a lot with, just alcohol and going out, and a lot of salty foods. That was my thing. And, we can think like, oh, this is self-care. I'm giving my body what it wants. But is that really what your body wants? Are you really evaluating? Are you really getting like real, like, intentional, like, okay, really, is that really what I need, versus like, oh, just running to something like, oh, I need this because it's going to make me feel better. Like this person, this glass of wine, this is what I need. This is actually what I need, versus like getting real intentional. Like, okay, do I actually need rest? Do I actually need to talk to somebody? Like, what are the feelings that are like making me feel like I have to have this thing? Like, oh, this is good for me, versus like what is truly good for you. I don't know. That's kind of how I work through it. And it takes time.
It really does, because once again, a lot of what you said, I have experienced before, especially like with the topic of food, because I didn't know I was an emotional eater until the pandemic. I learned a lot about
Pandemic
myself.
brought it out, right?
I learned a lot about myself, and then I think it's different too because now I'm older. I have a stable job. I make a lot of money, so it's like I could afford to do those things. Whereas before, it's like, okay, maybe you didn't have as much like financial resources, so you couldn't just buy whatever you wanted. But now I'm kind of like, I can buy a lot of stuff I want, and if I want to, I could just wait like a little bit, and then I still could buy whatever I want. So it's just like, okay, now you got the world at your fingertips. What are you going to do with it? So then it's like my favorite food is crawfish. And I'm like, I love crawfish. I was eating crawfish like every week during the pandemic. And I was like, I loved it. I was like,
Crawfish is a thing here in Houston.
I was like, not me. See, the thing with me too is like, I'm very like cheap too. So sometimes it might not be the food that get me, like, okay, like, dang, there's a lot of salt intake. It might not be that catch me, but it'll be how much money I spent on it. I'd be like, I spent this much money
That's a good one.
every week eating this. And I was just like, oh no, we can't do this no more. And sometimes with even food, like just intaking a certain amount, it's just like, okay, I feel like sluggish. I feel like after while you eating it, oh yeah, it feels good. Then I wake up the next morning, I'm like, dang, I don't feel good. I feel groggy. I'm on the toilet, and it's just like, maybe I shouldn't have ate that much or whatever. So for me with the balancing act, once I like notice like some of the after effects I start experiencing after I've indulged, then it's just like, okay, now before I do it, it's just like, do I really want that? Or like, it's kind of like you said, like in the moment and then not in the moment. Because sometimes I like want it in that moment, but then later I'm not gonna really want that. It's just like a little, I don't know. It just like comes and goes. But then sometimes it's like, no, I really want that. And a lot of the times, what I do with that is I just wait. So I'm like, okay, if I still want this by the end of the week, I'll go ahead and get it. you know, instead of just being like, I want a burger now, I'm going to go get a burger now. And I can't because, you know, it's down the street. So it's just like, yeah, let's just wait and let's see. And then I'm like, if I still want crawfish or whatever it is, okay, I'll go ahead and get it like at this time if I still want it. And a lot of times when I do that, I don't want it anymore. And it's funny because, you know, living on your own and then living with parents is different, because with my parents, I didn't know my mom was doing this, but she didn't let us indulge like at all. We had a cap for everything that was junk food, and I didn't realize that's what she was doing. I just knew I couldn't eat a certain amount. So I had the healthy habits before, but I lost them when I like became on my own and I had to relearn them. I didn't realize that's
For
what it was.
yourself. You had to learn
Exactly, because I'm like, I didn't realize that's what it was. So like if we had Oreos, she'd be like, "Oh, you can eat like 5 Oreos and that's it." And we just be like, "Okay," and then we'll do it. It would be like stuff like that, like, "Oh, like you don't need to go back for a second plate. What you have on your plate is enough." Or, you know, only get what you can eat, sort of thing. So I didn't know that's what she was doing until like maybe like some months ago. I was like, "Oh, my mama was doing that," because I'm having to do it with myself now. I'm like, "You don't need that whole $2 bag of hot fries." I start splitting them up into like snack bags, and I would like make like 4 or 5 of them out of that. And I'm like, "Okay, you eat one snack bag today. That's it."
Oh, I like that.
So it's just so funny because I'm like, a lot of that stuff like that I learned from back then, I'm like, okay, I have to apply now. So like you said, having to just kind of ask yourself and be like, am I going to want this tomorrow, or am I going to still feel the same way tomorrow? Is this like a temporary feeling, or is this just like, you know, something that you feel like you need or whatever? And then even like with other stuff that's not food, because I know food can be an easy one. Something else like massages or stuff like that, or like getting my nails done, or, you know, anything like that. Because it's like, okay, you want to be presentable, that's fine, but you don't need the extra deluxe pedicure every time you go. And you don't need this extra scent stuff they have. Like, I'm like, girl, you gotta stop. I'm like, dial it back. I go big and then I'd be like, all right, go bring it back some. You don't need massages all the time, because then after a while, if you start doing stuff a lot, it kind of don't mean as much sometimes.
Oh, that's good too. That's good.
So then it's like, it's not a special occasion no more. That's just my life, you know? So it's just like, okay, I'm supposed to get a massage, but it's just like, oh, I mean, you know, it's good or whatever. But like making it kind of like, it's like frequent, but not as frequent. It makes it a big thing. I feel like that about trips too. I was discussing with my friend before, because I see a lot of people, they travel like a lot now. And I'm like, I don't think I'd want to travel that much, because it's like right after you're decompressing from one trip, you're getting ready for another one. And it's like, for me personally, everybody else might not feel like this. I feel like maybe once every 3 to 4 months. I don't have to go out of the country. I could just go to Austin or somewhere else. It's just a different environment. And it still kind of does the same thing for me. But I feel like I'm not able to appreciate it as much once I normalize the behavior.
I love that you bring up traveling. And I do want to just add this before I add something else. But like, you got to be really aware of like where you are, like not only just like how your emotions, but where you are financially too. And I think when I first got out of nursing school, I was like, well, I work hard. I'm gonna play hard. Look,
exactly.
I'm going on trips. I'm doing this. I'm going out every weekend. I'm buying all the outfits because now I have money. Forgetting that I just bought a new car and I still have school loans over my head, and it's growing. Like, it's not just staying the same amount that I was. It's growing. It's still, and those trips are adding up, and I'm living in a new apartment, and I just got a car. And it was like, okay, when does it get from self-indulgent to like, okay, this is like self-care? And so for me, dialing it back a lot and being like, okay, this is not what's up. Like, just because I work hard, play hard, like that leads to a lot of like overspending, binge drinking, binge eating. Like, we have to find a healthy balance and talk about like what really self-care is. Okay. Self-care is not just giving yourself everything that you want on a whim. Like, really being honest about how you are caring for yourself, whether that be financially, physically with exercise and nutrition, but emotionally, like for me, self-care right now is like just doing less and like, really protecting myself and taking time to understand what's like, what I need. Sometimes, just knowing like how I'm gonna like not even react, but kind of like knowing when I need to sit down, like when I just need to sit down, like, okay, like things don't always have to go at 100. That's my self-care. Like, I'm just like, okay, I need to sit down. I need to plan. I need to get specific. I need to get intentional. Knowing when to slow down and when to pick up the pace, knowing when to rest and when, come on, sis, it's time to go. I think that's really like my self-care right now, figuring that out, finding that out for myself, and not basing it off of anyone else. So I think that I would throw that in there too, like that whole misconception about like, oh, we work hard, so we need to play hard. Like, not necessarily, not all the time, sis. Like,
and playing hard doesn't always look the same either. So it's like you don't have to be doing all this other stuff that everybody else is doing. Sometimes, like, kind of like how you said about your self-care, it just might, well, you said yours is doing less, so that could be your plan hard. Okay, so I did all this work, so now I need a rest. Or I've done all this work, okay, so let me take some time out to spend time with my family or reconnect with an old friend or anything like that. It doesn't have to necessarily be going outside.
going outside, like it doesn't have to look like everybody else. Like,
exactly.
The travels, those are great, but look, I like me a little day trip to Galveston, and I'm happy.
That's what I was saying. I was like, and I noticed that about myself. I was like, me going to Mexico is, if not, it don't feel the same as going to San Antonio, but I'm like, they both feel good, and I both like it.
And like not to
less
say
expensive than the other.
Yeah, and not to say like the people that travel, like kudos to you if that's what works for you. But I think the same thing is like not feeling pressured to.
Yeah, everybody is different. So whatever you feel helps you out, that's fine. But that's why I say you just have to know who you are as a person. And I notice for me, I don't necessarily always have to go out of the country or go do something extravagant. I'm good with doing like a staycation here, or like I said, I mentioned San Antonio. I just went there with a bunch of my friends, and that still had the same thing for me. So me knowing that, I'm like, okay, I don't have to be like, I'm in Cabo this weekend, and next weekend I'm in Aruba. Like, no, you're fine. It's like you don't need to do all that.
And then you like live within your means. I don't know. Like,
exactly. Well, and everybody, it kind of goes back to like, what kind of lifestyle do you want to have, and what are you willing to spend your money on, and how do you want to live your life, and things like that. So you just have to. I feel like this whole episode is about knowing yourself. You just have to know who you are as a person and what works for you and what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do. Exactly. I told y'all I'm a little cheap, so I'm like, I'd rather spend my money on some other things that it's some like different places where some people are willing to spend their money. So for that, like, you just have to know what you're willing to do, as I said, and what you're not willing to do.
Yeah, and I think also that's a little bit of money mindset in there too, like knowing like where you want to put your funds, what you want to do for that, and like being okay with that. Sometimes I don't know if I would say I'm cheap. Yeah. I don't like to spend that much. Like if I could buy the scale,
I'm like, I spend money on what I want to spend it on. But if, like I said, I know what I want to spend it on. So I'm like, I know if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it big. So then I'm not going to do it as frequently, or I'm going to account for that. So I'm going to, save up to account like, okay, like birthdays and like family events. I was like, I'll spend the bag. Like, because I like getting together with my friends and family. Like, I like stuff like that. So I'm like, I'm willing to do that. I'm not going to spend $500 on no belt. Like, that ain't me.
Yes.
I'm like, that's not me. But some people might spend that on a belt and they're not doing all that with their friends and family. So everything is about knowing yourself and what you're okay with.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I'm the same way. Like when it comes to products and things, sometimes I'm not really like too quick to spend my money on. But if it's like, you know, like a health thing, like some vitamins, maybe some skincare, I'm learning like, okay, I can spend my money on this because in the long term, I'm gonna see my investment.
Yeah, that's true too.
Certain things like now I'm trying to like, okay, Fallon, like you need to invest in this. This is what the result you want. This what you want to feel? This one you want to experience? Like we've been saying, like knowing yourself. Okay, especially when it comes to like skincare and things like that, hair care. I'm like, okay, I'll spend a little bit more, but it's taken me some time to get there.
Yeah. And it's like we said with a lot of the stuff we talked about, it's a journey. So you're not going to get the answers overnight. And I had to learn this because I'm very impatient. I'm like, I know what I want to do and I want it now.
I know.
I had to learn that. I'm like, okay, like some stuff just takes time and you're just going to have to be okay with that. But then sometimes it's good that stuff takes time because then when you get what you want, it's even more gratifying because it's not like instant gratification. Yeah. And then it's good too because it allows for failure, but then it allows for you to like pivot and then come up with something else and find out what exactly works for you. So, you know, I think this is like a quote or people say this, it's like, it's beauty in the process. Like just getting stuff right away, you don't appreciate everything if you just get it so quickly. So I had to learn that as an adult.
Definitely. Same here. It's beauty in the process for sure.
Yeah. I used to tell myself that during nursing school, the Lord. I'm like, one day it's going to be worth it. One day.
Look at us now.
It's worth it.
Still working it out. Still finding beauty in the process.
Right. So I want to get into these 9 top types of rest. So I sent you a picture, and then for our people on YouTube, I'm going to put on the screen. So I just want us to kind of go through each of these and like talk about like, what does it mean to us? And like, how does it relate to nursing or anything of that nature? So the first one is time away. And I kind of feel like that's kind of self-explanatory. But how do you take time away to rest?
So not only like in work and things, making PTO mandatory, like I think sometimes save it up or we like wait for this enormous trip, but it's like some days you need that like mental health break and being okay with that. Yeah. So I work the 9 to 5 now. So for me, I have to take like an extra 3-day weekend sometimes. Like I'll do it every other month or every month. I'm still deciding. It is not no cap.
We'll go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a cap on it. Like I need my mental health day, like seriously, and I don't have to save it up. And then also like for me, breaks. Taking a break during our shift is so important. Honoring those break times, even if it's just 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, because we work long hours and then you only have a 30-minute lunch. And during
that's insane. I'm like, how do people with 8 hours get an hour break? And I get 30.
And then with the 30 minutes, like it takes time to go get your lunch, to warm it up, all your things together, to unwind and to sit down. By the time you sit down, it's like 15 minutes already passed by. Exactly. So look, why like just limit that 30-minute? Like take time for your breaks.
I will co-sign that because I do notice a lot of nurses do not take their break, and I am not one of them. I will get cranky if I do not eat. Okay. I'm like, I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. I gotta go.
Okay, and I'm thirsty. Look, there is the hydration station. I can't look at y'all no more. I gotta go.
You walk right past the hydration station and don't even drink. And also with those breaks, taking time to go to the restroom because we don't do that. Sometimes I have to check myself. I'm like, did you pee today? And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like we got to pause. And then the crazy thing is that even taking the drinks and going to the restroom, it literally takes like only a couple of minutes to do. It's like whatever you're going to do in that time, you still have time to do it. Like you said, we have long shifts. We got 12 hours. And then you have to be okay with knowing that you're not going to get everything solved during your shift. That's why nursing is 24 hours, as we say a lot of the times. As in regards to your first part of it with the taking PTO and stuff, I figured out, like, I think my thing is like every 3 to 4 months. I'm like, okay, I'll take like, and honestly, it's weird because I don't really need that time off, but I have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
If I get like 4 days off, 5 days off, I'm like, all right, okay, I'm ready to go back to work. It just makes that much of a difference. Sometimes it's like you don't even need like a whole week or 2 weeks. I get bored. So
Yeah.
sometimes I don't need like a lot of time off. I just need like a set time. And then I'm like, all right, I can go back to work now. So for me, working bedside, like as an IMU nurse, like every like 3 to 4 months, and sometimes I would do it like every other month. I might try to make myself have like a long stretch of days off, even if I didn't use my PTO. And that helped me out a lot. But working as a folk pool nurse, I'm trying to see what I want to do like you, because I'm PRN, so I don't have to work like 3 shifts a week.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
good.
thinking of, giving my maybe a week in the month where I work 2 or something like that. I haven't decided yet, but I kind of been playing around with my schedule to see exactly what I like. But yes, time
That's
away.
good,
That's
nurse.
essential. And some people don't even take their PTO. I'm like, we got to
They're
get
like,
off that.
well, I don't have anything to do. I'm like,
Yes,
it's
there's
rest.
always something to do.
Just take time off. Like, use your PTO. It's yours. You earned it. Yeah.
Yeah, you put the time in for it. Paid time off. I'm like, you work for that PTO. So yeah, definitely. Even if you don't have anything to do, like you said, I bet you have something to do. You just don't know you got to do it. I'm like, nah, there's something to do. There's always something to do. Even if it's binge watching Netflix,
Mm,
that's something I do.
okay.
I love my little shows. So now we'll get into the second one, which is permission to not be helpful. And I actually just learned this, like maybe this last month. Working folk pool, I've noticed that a lot of people are like really grateful just for me to be on the unit, which I love because I'm like, finally, I'm appreciated. Because I feel like sometimes when you work on a unit, they expect a certain amount of work level, I guess, from you because they know what you're capable of doing. So they're just like expecting that 100% of you every time. And sometimes you don't have 100% of yourself to give. And I feel like working float pool, they're just like, oh, we're happy just another nurse is here, sort of thing. And not as many people ask me for help because they don't know what I do know and what I don't know. Like they don't know my capabilities. So I just kind of literally am able to take care of my patients and mind my business.
Mm,
Whereas like on my unit I was before and even where I used to work, it's like I might have a break in my day where I'm like, okay, my patients are good, they're toileted, no pain, we're good for a while. I should be able to sit down for a little bit. But then if somebody else come in, hey, can you put this IV in for me? Or hey, can you do this? Or hey, can you do this? And it's just like, well, I was planning on sitting down for like 15 minutes. But I learned that with the folk pool because somebody asked me that I need help, and I'm not used to people. They ask like, "Hey, are you doing okay?" And it's just like, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." But like, people more often now will ask me like, "Do you need help with anything?" And I had to learn to be like, I don't like. I had to tell myself, technically, I don't need help with it because I can figure it out. But I'm like, just let people help you if somebody's willing to do it. So one time, I think I had someone do like a lab or something for me while I did something else, and that was just like something else that I didn't have to worry about doing. So that's
right.
how I learned how to, not be helpful and things of that nature.
Yeah, no, when I think about that, that's really good. That's something that I'm taking notes with. Um, I think with that permission to not be helpful for me lately, it's like letting people figure out things on their own. Like I don't
Mm,
have to always be the one to like, oh, I got the answer. I got this.
mhm.
And I think it's like me and my, my personality. I love to share. I love to help. I'm a giver, but not everybody asks for my help. Not everybody asks for my opinion.
You're
So
like
why?
inserting yourself.
Yeah, and
I've done that. I've done that before.
like that's why you're telling me, right? That's why you're telling me your problems because you want my help. And it's like, no, people just want to vent. People come to you just to talk about things, just to be like a sounding board. It's okay to just be there and not have the answer. Because I don't all the time. Like
Yeah.
I just be like, okay, God, what do I say here? What you want me to say? Like,
Right.
sometimes he's like, don't say nothing.
That's true.
Just
I
sit there.
relate to that because it wouldn't even necessarily be people coming to me asking me or telling me about something. Sometimes I will overhear people at the nurse's station, and I have to tell myself I need to mind my business. I needed to learn how to do that. I'd hear somebody with a problem with one of their patients talking to somebody else, and I'd be like, "This is what you got to do," or I'd be like, "This is how you like." Or they'll ask somebody who don't know, and then they're trying to figure it out. And like you said, you have the answer. So then I'll walk over there, I'll insert myself into that, and I'm like, you just click on this, and this, and that, and all this stuff. I've inserted myself a couple of times into people, stuff they got going on with their patient, and then I still got my workload over here. I still got to take care of, and it's just like, girl, what are you doing? Take care of you and your people first before you start trying to worry about other people. I had to tell myself that. Like that was like a couple years back I experienced that. And I just had to, I'm like, sit down and mind your business.
That's good. That's good.
I'm like, and then I started having to tell one of my other coworkers the same thing because I noticed that she started doing it. I was like, is that your like because they you know how they do the whole thing, like, oh, if there's a call light going off, you don't pass it, which okay, that's fine. But sometimes it's other stuff too that we insert ourselves into other people problems. And it's like, that's not your patient. They have a nurse. You take care of your patients. So I had to be
Yeah.
like, just sit down and worry about yourself.
And you don't give people the opportunity to figure it out on their own. Like,
Yeah, to learn because that's something they have to learn. So yeah, that's just interesting. So the third type of rest is something unproductive, and I think we touched on that some throughout the episode.
what is it? I'm trying to think.
Something unproductive.
For
That's a type
me,
of rest.
yeah, for me, I think like just like watching TV is like my unproductive.
I
But
think so
not
too.
even. But not even because I'll still be learning. I'll watch a documentary quick.
Oh no! I'm
Watching
watching trash TV. I like mine sometimes because I'm too like I don't want to be intellectually stimulated all the time, and I feel like we like that at work. We're too stimulated, so now I want to watch some crap TV. I'll watch like some bad horror movies that they don't make no sense. They got plot holes, and I'll just be watching it. I like the effects are bad.
to watch nature shows. Like I
Oh
love
yeah, I used to watch
animal
those with my
shows.
parents a lot.
Yeah, that are on like now on Netflix they have like these whole nature shows, wild
Yeah.
piggies, like
Yeah,
all
we
the
used to watch
animals.
Blue Planet, and then there was another one we used to watch a lot. I like those. I used to go to sleep to them too because
Yes,
it's
it's
like
so
very
calming.
calming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm like not trying to be stimulated. So yeah, that's something
my
that
dad documented me out. We used to watch documentaries all the time. He'll have us sit down and watch documentaries about different countries and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, Dad. I mean, it came back helpful when I was older. We used to watch about animals, everything.
oh
They
I love
come back
that.
around, but I'm like, mm.
Not anymore.
People like, you want to see this documentary? No, I don't. I don't. I don't want to learn today. I just want to exist.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of my TV approach. But I love me a good Netflix 7 episode binge.
Yeah, I did that with Stranger Things recently.
Yes, we did that. I just finished watching it maybe some weeks ago or a week ago, whatever. And then me and my family already planned a watch party. For
Oh,
the
nice. For the
volume.
next one?
Yeah,
Nice.
we're gonna watch it when it come out together.
Aw,
So I love that. I love Stranger Things. That's like right up my alley. I like all things
sci-fi.
horror, suspense. I like detective stuff, medical shows. I like all that stuff.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
crime
That's
shows.
not unproductive. I just give me a good little snack in my blanket, and I'm good. So the fourth type of rest is connection to art and nature. I feel like that with my gardening.
Yeah. I just love my dog. She helps me stay like active. So
Yeah.
going for walks.
Yeah,
That's what
just being outside, the sun, helps a
yeah.
lot. That's why I like bike riding too. I didn't mention that before, but that
Oh,
was
yeah, I
another
saw
thing.
that.
Yeah, that was another thing I picked up. I've done it before with my dad when I was younger. We used to go for bike rides like on Saturday in the morning. But I hadn't done that in a while until the pandemic, and I went out and bought a bike. And then like I don't do it as often as I did during the pandemic. Well, now it's hot, so I'm like, you gotta wake up early.
Yeah, you gotta be up early.
Y'all gotta wake up early to do that. But where I live is like a lot of trees and stuff, so I love the bike rides because it's just, I don't know, the color green, it does something for me now. I don't know, I guess it's nature, but it's just like, it's just green, and it's peaceful, you know. And then that's when I'm allowed my quiet time too, because it's just me on the bike.
Nice. I like that.
So our fifth type of rest is solitude to recharge. I think that's just me in general, because I'm one of those people, I think you've mentioned this too earlier in the episode, where you're like normally like a social butterfly and stuff like that. I'm kind of both. I like, if I'm around people, I'm like very high energy, and then like I have to balance that out with like not doing anything. So like if I have an event for the day, like either before that I'm like, I'm not talking to like barely anybody, or after I'm like to myself, and then during the event I'm like but I have to balance that. I noticed that about myself, like my social battery, it has a limit.
Yes, and that's okay. Like I think for me, I've always been an outgoing person, and so like I would always have people over at my house, like people like, come on, let's go to Fallon's house, let's go out, let's go drink, let's go eat. And by the end, I had very little reserve for myself and unhealthy boundaries. That was a lot of unhealthy boundaries, always saying yes. And then there was just a power in saying no. And so now I'm kind of like at that extreme where I'm like, no, all the time.
Now you gotta learn how to be like, okay, well, I'll go out.
Yeah. And so learning that little balance again, for me has been good. But like now I'm so protective of my peace. Like, don't call me. I'm on do not disturb. Like, I'm good. Yeah. But if I choose, like, like knowing those signs when I'm like, okay, like, Fallon, you need to get out. Like, there's, you need to go talk to some people. And then it's like, oh, my little light is on again. Yay.
I learned that too with like text messages and stuff, because it's easy to communicate with people, but I had to learn, like, you don't have to instantly respond.
Yep.
You can wait, or they can wait. I mean, if it's important, they'll call. So
yeah.
I know a lot of my friends utilize the do not disturb. I don't use it, but like I see that they have like their time where it goes on, and like it might send it to them, but you know how it says like send in quietly and stuff like that. So I definitely can see that being part of the solitude to recharge, because you can choose when you want to engage with other people that way.
Also, I'm gonna add social media in there, because like that's a lot of availability, and like wait a second,
like easy access to someone. You don't always have to respond right away, and if you don't respond at all. I mean, all right, guys. So we just have a couple of these types of rest. So we're kind of gonna fly through the rest, so I can be respectful of Fallon's time. So our sixth type of rest is a break from responsibility. That's kind of relates to what you were saying earlier about taking that pressure off of yourself.
Yeah, like not always having to have the answers. I think sometimes as nurses, we're always on like, oh, we're the nurse. We, our parents, our family members, our friends, they come to us for answers. Like, look, I'm off today. Like, if you got a question about that, go to your PCPs, ma'am. Like, look.
I always say that. I'm like, I am not a doctor. It is not Laney MD.
Google is the tool, like people use Google. Like, go ahead, Google. Go right ahead.
Our seventh type of rest is stillness to decompress. I really like that one. That kind of speaks to our quiet time that we've been talking about a lot throughout the episode. And, just taking time to sit still and think about what you've been through and what you've experienced, and how do you feel about that? Just kind of having an opportunity to process things before, continuing on.
Yeah, I think for me, journaling and, doing my little devotional. I have like a short one, like, what's her name? I forgot her name, but it's like a real quick one. I read a little something. I journal down how I'm feeling, and it's kind of like a 30-minute process, and I'm good. And it just gets my mind even before the day, like, okay, this is what I want to feel. This is what I want to experience. And so this is what I'm going to do. And it's like just a few minutes in stillness to decompress before the day gets started.
Exactly. That's why I'm not like, once I'm up, but I wouldn't call myself exactly a morning person. So I like to kind of wake up a little bit earlier so I can have the opportunity to kind of like, like, oh, it's a new day, gratefulness to be alive and stuff like that especially before you want to work. I like to kind of have my mental together because you don't know what you're going to encounter during your shift. It could be anything. So just kind of trying to be like, okay, you're okay, and all this other stuff. So that helps me out a lot.
A place and like being real grounded. Like,
right, exactly. And that kind of goes into our 8th type of rest, which is safe space.
Yes. Like creating that space for you and like owning it. Like, this is me. Like, it goes back to boundaries. Like, this is me. These are my limits. These are my expectations. These are my values. This is what important to me. Like, authenticity is really important to me. Genuineness, love, like this is my space. This is what is important to me, and protecting that at all costs. People might question you, this and this and that, but like, look, and you can tell them in a loving way, but this is me and this is you, like.
Yeah. And we can align or we cannot, and that's okay too. I think sometimes there's too much pressure on you having to necessarily get along with a lot of people. Sometimes, everybody's personality is different. Some people get along better, and then some people don't, and that's okay too. It doesn't have to be a thing. I don't know how we
don't have to all be best friends.
Yeah, I'm like, we don't have to do that. It's fine. I can respect you, and you can respect me, but we don't have to be buddy. It's fine.
We came here for the patience, and like, okay, cool. Let's move on. Get our work done and move on.
Exactly. And then our 9th type of rest is alone time at home. So, this is actually funny because my husband works from home now. So I'm like, there is no alone time at home. But he goes, like, he's kind of hybrid now. So he'll go into the office on Mondays and then he's home for the rest of the week. So I start making myself off on Mondays so that I can just have the house to myself, because it's different. Because then it's you, and like you say, it's you and then it's somebody else. And then it's different, having somebody else there. Whereas when, you just home alone, it's kind of like when you grow up too with family and stuff, and you have all these people in the house, and then you finally get the house to yourself, and I could play my music as loud as I want. I can sing to the top of my lungs and it's not going to matter, and all this other stuff.
That's real. I'm so glad that you bring that up, because like relationships, everybody, oh, I can't wait to get in a relationship. I want to be married. I want to do this. And even me as a single woman, but I have to appreciate this season that I'm in. Like, I get to spend this time to work on me, to be alone. Appreciate your season, like whatever you're in. Like, even as a married person, y'all have y'all need y'all alone time. So I'm so glad you bring that up. That's so real. Like, because we be thinking like over here, the single folk out here, we like, oh, I can't wait. Like,
like you want to be up under this person all the time, and it's like, no,
that's not true.
I'm like, you want to go out with your friends? Do you want to go do this?
Things to do. That's funny. Like,
go to plan little boys trip. Y'all want to go to the gun range? Like,
we all need our alone time.
Yeah, but it is true. That is a misperception. It's the same thing, kind of like with parents and having kids. Like, you don't want to be mom all the time, because you are all these people. They're all you. But I'm like, you don't want to be on all the time. Kind of like with being a nurse. You want to have nurse brain on all the time. And then, especially with being married, you have to be considerate of the other person too. So it's like that takes some mental thinking. Like, it's not just nothing. You don't think about nothing when you're by yourself. So
yeah, definitely. I think my alone time at home is so crucial, and it's important, like just going back to finances, because I'll be like quick to want to go out, meet friends. Is that really wise for your bank account, friend? Is that really wise for your bank account? You got different priorities now. So it's okay to be alone at home. Like, you got plenty to do. You can make dinner. And I'll be so content. I think also this speaks to being content with yourself.
Yeah.
It says alone at home, but like being content with who you are, what you bring to the table, you know, all your values, everything, who you are. I think that's what it says to me. It speaks to me, like just being content and happy.
Yeah, I just came across this. I think it was funny because I had it screenshotted in my photo gallery, and I was just scrolling through my pictures one day, and then I saw it, and I was like, when did I don't remember their screenshotting this, but I was like,
I was
I
on to
definitely wanted
something.
to talk to you about it. Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk with you about this. So we're going to start to wrap up this episode. And once again, I'm just so grateful that you took some time out your day to come and talk with us about burnout and rest and how to balance the two. So the last segment is called Scrub and Sip. We're going to like scrub anything negative that we feel about healthcare, nursing, or a bad experience we had with a patient, coworker, whoever, and then we're gonna like tell our experience about that, and then we're gonna sip to something that we love about nursing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think. You know, I haven't had a lot of bad experiences lately with nursing, which I'm real glad about because this float pool has been treating me real nice. I guess I could say one thing that I just thought of because my dad was asking me about this. I'm like releasing at the medical center when I go to the that hospital. I have to go to the staffing office first, and sometimes I'm like a very organized person, so when things don't go exactly how I think it's gonna go, sometimes it kind of throws me off, and I have to like recalibrate, and I just have to like stop myself from becoming like antsy and anxious about stuff. So when I go to the medical center, they don't have the assignment up all the time by the time I get to the staffing office. And I could be anywhere in the hospital and I don't know what unit I'm going to be on. So it's kind of could be nerve wracking. So I'm just like waiting there. It's like 6:30 and I like to get on the unit early so I could look at my patients and stuff. It's like 6:35. I'm like, we about to clock in. Where's the paper? So that's sometimes the good thing about situations we don't like being in. It kind of teaches us how to operate in those sorts of situations. But I'm scrubbing that experience from me because it just be causing me anxiety. Then I'm like, okay, I got to get to the unit. I got to find where everything is that I feel like I need to know. I need to look up my patients, and it just starts to create a very anxious laney. And that's the start of the shift. And I don't like to go into the shift like that. So I'm releasing that. And then I'm going to sip to this last shift that I just had where it was like all my patients were good. They were easily pleased. You know, it's kind of simple going from room to room, got them what they needed, followed up with what they needed. And that was like, if I could have a perfect shift, that was that one. So I'm sipping to having a perfect shift this past weekend.
Sip. I love that. That's so good. Like, I love this whole like scrub the old, sip to the new, to the good. I love that. I have to think about this one. So, so many things. Like I could scrub on. Like, I think the one that kind of messed me up in the beginning, it was like when I started to like ask about things, and I had I'm really trying to advocate and ask about money, and you know, okay, like I'm getting up there with my experience. I asked my manager, like, okay, so what is the monetary? What is the what am I gonna like? What's my monetary gain? Am I gonna get a raise for being a preceptor and I'm orienting? And I have, you know, I was a little bit working, you know, talking myself up, and she just kind of looked at me like, it was all in a text actually. She would just text me and she was just like, you know, that's what we do as nurses. We help others. You know, she kind of shunned me and kind of was like, you should be wanting to give back. So there is no monetary reward. And, you know, from then on, she did kind of have an eye for me, like just kind of like,
that's that girl. Ask about that. Yep.
The audacity of her asking for money. Like I didn't get any money. And then there's another situation when I had to like ask for questions. Like I didn't really know what I was doing as a coordinator. And my manager kind of just was like, well, you got to figure things out. You just got to get up and do it. And I'm just like, that kind of vibe. Like,
yeah, you're like, okay.
What about orientation? Like, can I get some more like one-on-one? And she was just like, no, you got to figure it out. That's how I did it. And so a lot of those older nurses kind of left me in a bad kind of like just feeling real low about myself, like the audacity. Why would you ask for more and want to have more, like, kind of like making me feel weak, like, like I'm not a strong nurse. So I'm scrubbing that.
Yeah, we're scrubbing that. That gotta go.
That is not for me. That
Right.
is not what Fallon is. And I'm sipping to, what can I sip to in nursing? I think like just that one-on-one that I have with my patients. Like I truly love that one-on-one. Like I now work as a COVID research nurse and I do pediatrics work. Like I have the strangest job for me, y'all, right now. So pray for me. I've been needing a lot of self-care recently, but when God aligns, I'm going to move around. I'm learning what I can here now. And so I think that's what I can cheers or sip to. I keep saying cheers. We could cheers, sip, whatever.
Sipping.
I think just going back to nursing. Nursing has given me so many opportunities to learn about myself, to advocate. And I think just now my mindset is so different. Like even now I'm like, I'm going to give what I can. I'm not going to give any more. If I don't have any more, this is what I can do. I'm doing the best with what I have. And so my mindset has been so different now. Like, regardless of what comes around, like, I'm Fallon. I'm going to be all right.
And I'm enough.
Exactly. I'm a good nurse and I am enough. I'm worthy.
Oh, yeah, we're sipping to that. To being enough.
That was good.
So once again, I just want to thank you for joining us on Sips with Scrubs. We're going to have to do this again.
Yes, I would love that. So fun.
So I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast. Hopefully everybody enjoyed what they heard today. If you guys have anything y'all want to add to the conversation, definitely leave it below in the comments. Fallon, I guess if you want them, where can they find you at?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I also have a nursing wellness community on Facebook, the Nurse Wellness Community. And on Instagram, I'm Fallon, FALLON, the wellness _RN.
Yeah, and I'll definitely make sure to put that on the screen for them too. So if you guys are looking for some community, definitely get in touch with Fallon's Facebook group. They have a lot of lives and things like that you guys can join and be a part of.
And I'm going to have you on there too as well.
Oh, yes. So thanks you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.